They don't fail at the top. They don't fail halfway up the mountain. They fail at the first step. Before the plan. Before the battle. Before the first drop of sweat ever hits the dirt. They fail because they never truly begin. They flirt with ambition. They whisper about success. They write goals in journals and scream affirmations into mirrors. But deep down, they're lying to themselves. They are waiting, for the right time, for the right feeling, for some mythical certainty to appear out of thin air. And that waiting is death. Because success doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who decide. Those who charge into uncertainty like warriors, who step forward despite doubt, who leap without the net, and build wings on the way down. The reason most people fail before they even begin, is because they spend their lives preparing to start, instead of starting to prepare through motion. They think they need permission. From parents, from peers, from society, from the voice in their own head that says, "Who do you think you are?" But history wasn't written by those who asked for permission. It was carved by men and women who refused to accept the world as it was handed to them. Do you think Henry Ford asked permission when he said, "I'm going to build a car for the masses"? They laughed in his face, said he was a dreamer, said he didn't understand the market. But Ford understood something more powerful than any critic. That clarity is born through commitment, not the other way around. Most people are waiting to feel ready. Let me tell you something, you will never feel ready. Not to start a business. Not to rebuild your life. Not to speak your truth, or chase the version of you that haunts your dreams. Read the biographies. Study the greats. Lincoln didn't feel ready. He battled depression, ridicule, and loss. But he got back up, again and again, because he knew something most people never learn. The pain of trying and failing is nothing compared to the slow, silent agony of never trying at all. You must burn the ships. Eliminate the escape route. Kill the plan B. That's why most fail. They always keep one foot in safety. One hand gripping the ledge, just in case the climb gets too steep. But greatness lives on the other side of full commitment. You must declare war on your comfort zone. Because every time you hesitate, every time you overthink, every time you trade action for analysis, you reinforce a subconscious belief. I am not the kind of person who follows through. And your identity follows your habits. You become what you prove to yourself on a daily basis. That's why belief is the first battlefield. Not belief in some outcome, belief in yourself. Unshakable, unreasonable, unbreakable belief. The kind of belief that shows up before the evidence, before the applause, before the results. The kind of belief Thomas Edison had when he burned through 10,000 failed attempts to make the light bulb. When they called him mad, he said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's not optimism. That's identity. That's a man who already saw the future, because he had claimed it in his mind before the world ever caught up. You must see it, feel it, breathe it, before the world validates it. Most people fail because they wait for external permission before building internal conviction. But it never works that way. Reality bends to the will of the committed, not the curious. Not the casual, the committed, the person who says, "I will either succeed, or die becoming the kind of person who never quits." That's the secret no one tells you. Success doesn't require genius, it doesn't require perfect timing, or fancy degrees, or viral luck. It requires ownership. Ownership of your thoughts, ownership of your emotions, ownership of your time, your direction, your destiny. Because until you own it, you cannot lead it. And if you don't lead your life, someone else will. Your boss, your environment, your fears, the expectations of people who gave up on their own dreams and now want you to join them in mediocrity. You must become unavailable for that kind of life. You must decide, today, right now, that failure is not what happens when you fall. Failure is what happens when you refuse to rise. And that is why most people fail before they even begin. Because they never truly rise. They walk with their heads down, eyes on the ground, afraid to look themselves in the mirror, not because of shame, but because deep down, they know. They know they haven't given everything. They know they haven't bled for their vision. They know they've let fear write the story they were born to author. Answer, they tell themselves lies. They say, it's not the right time. Maybe next year. I'm not ready yet. But time is not a mercy. Time is a mirror. And every day you delay is a day you confirm your identity as someone who waits, someone who watches, someone who plays the game with the parking brake on. Understand this, the moment you hesitate, the mind starts building a case against you. It begins whispering doubts, stacking excuses, manufacturing scenarios where failure is inevitable. That is how most people lose the war, before they even put on the armor. Because belief is fragile when it's not backed by movement, and clarity is only granted to those bold enough to chase the fog. If you want direction, start walking. If you want answers, take the risk. If you want to know what you're made of, throw yourself into the fire. That's where self-respect is forged. That's where identity is rebuilt. People say, I'm lost. No, you're not. You're just stationary. Motion creates momentum, but stillness breeds decay. And most people are spiritually decaying, not because they failed, but because they never demanded more from themselves than the bare minimum. They want the gold but fear the shovel. They want the view but dread the climb. They want freedom but run from discipline. But here's the ancient truth the legends understood: discipline is freedom. Discipline is the key to unlocking your future. Discipline is the language the universe respects. It's not sexy. It's not loud. It doesn't post itself on social media. But it builds empires. Carnegie didn't become the king of steel through motivation. He became a titan because he outdisciplined the world. Because when others were chasing comfort, he was constructing clarity through ruthless routine. Because when others said, tomorrow, he said now. And so I ask you, who are you becoming through your habits? Because your habits are not just things you do, they're the bricks of your identity. You either build a fortress of power, or you dig a pit of regret. You either hardwire the traits of success, focus, grit, clarity, courage, or you reinforce the behaviors that bury your potential alive. And don't talk to me about potential if you're not obsessed with extracting it. Don't talk to me about dreams if your actions are asleep. Don't talk to me about destiny if you're not willing to bleed for it. You're not tired. You're under-challenged. You're not unmotivated. You're disconnected from purpose. That fire you're looking for. It's not in a YouTube video. It's not in a quote or a morning podcast. It's buried inside you, beneath every excuse, every delay, every watered-down version of your truth. You have to dig for it. With force, with hunger, with zero apologies, and no one can do it for you. Not your mentors, not your parents, not your heroes. This path, it's solo, it's savage, and it demands everything you've got. But here's the beauty: everything you want is already yours, if you're willing to become the version of you who can hold it. You want wealth? Become the person who creates value even when no one is watching. You want impact? Become the person who leads when everyone else hesitates. You want freedom? Earn it through consistency, through sacrifice, through war with your own weakness. Because your goals will not lower themselves to meet you. You must rise to meet them. Every single day, with fire in your belly, and war in your spirit. That's what most people never understand. They want the treasure, but refuse the transformation. They want the reward, but avoid the responsibility. So they fail, not because they weren't capable, but because they never became the version of themselves that could hold the life they said they wanted. They never aligned their actions with their ambition. They never aligned their thoughts with their targets. They never aligned their identity with the dream. So the dream dies, quietly, no funeral, no music, just the slow, silent rot of untapped greatness. But you don't have to be one of them. You can begin now, not perfectly, not fearlessly, but completely, with full force, with the kind of intensity that burns bridges and builds mountains. Because once you say yes to your purpose, you declare war on every lie you've ever told yourself. You ignite the fire. You pick up the hammer. You stop living by accident and start building by design. But here's the truth about purpose: they don't hand it to you like a gift. You forge it, with every hard choice, with every early morning, every late night, every moment you feel like breaking, but don't. Purpose is not found in comfort. It's discovered in the furnace, in the heat of sacrifice, in the ache of discipline, in the lonely hours when no one's watching, and you still choose to show up. That's why most people run. Not from failure, but from responsibility. Because once you lock into a purpose, you can no longer pretend. You can't lie to yourself. You can't scroll the pain away. You can't numb your potential with distractions. Purpose burns too loud for you to stay asleep. And when you find it, when you finally commit to something bigger than yourself, it changes everything. You stop chasing dopamine. You start building legacy. You stop waiting for motivation. You become motivation. You start walking like your future depends on every step, because it does. And people will not understand you. They'll say, you've changed. You're damn right you've changed. Because you had to. Because the old you was addicted to hesitation, and the new you is married to execution. This world isn't waiting, and neither is your purpose. You're not here to blend in. You're not here to tiptoe through life and arrive safely at death. You're here to shake the ground, to speak the truth, to build the life that keeps you up at night. And no, your circumstances don't matter as much as your decisions. Lincoln was born into poverty. Carnegie worked 12-hour days in a factory as a boy. Oprah was abused, broke, and silenced, until she refused to be invisible. They didn't wait for permission. They built empires from ashes. What's stopping you? You think your pain disqualifies you. Your pain is your advantage. It's your power, if you own it. It's the weight that builds your strength. It's the resistance that forges your clarity. Because clarity doesn't come from overthinking. It comes from action. It comes from doing hard things again and again, until your mind sharpens like a blade. You don't find vision, you build it, and you build it with discipline. Let's make something clear. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect in motion. Discipline is what you do when no one's watching. When the lights are off, the motivation is gone, and the excuses start sounding reasonable again. But you push anyway, you move anyway, because discipline is the highest form of self-love. It's saying, I believe in the future version of me so much, I will not betray him today. That's why you wake up early. That's why you train your body, your mind, your thoughts. That's why you say no to comfort, to excuses, to easy exits. Because that's how you earn your evolution. And no one can hand you that. It's not gifted, it's forged, and it's yours, if you're willing to pay the price. You want power, then live like a person who cannot be broken. Not because life is easy, but because you no longer allow life to dictate your effort. The battlefield is not out there. It's in here, your mind, your focus, your ability to stay locked in on your purpose when the storms rise. Because they will rise, and most people, they fold, because they weren't building strength, they were playing dress up with discipline. But you build for the storm. You train for the drought. You prepare for the war before it comes. Because when it does, you're not surprised. You're ready, and when the world asks, how did you become this version of yourself? You'll answer with one sentence: